Hello, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our most recent episode of Market Pulse. I'm Mike Sorrentino along with Bepin, and this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be an exciting one because this is why we're in the business of what we do, talking about the future for opportunity, the future for investment returns. But as you'll see with the title, this might sound like a little bit of an exaggeration, this idea of entering into a golden age. We've hinted at this a little bit over the past 12 to 18 months about how this idea of all these different forces coming together into a true golden age. And we feel that we are in the early innings of one happening. So we're going to spend some time today talking about the different legs to the stool of this golden age and why it's going to be different than anything else I think humanity has ever seen before.
Yep. And this is going to be a little different than our normal presentation where we kind of focus on more of the fine details. This is more of taking a step back and seeing where the ship's headed versus the little day-to-day stuff.
All right, great quote from Simon the Zealot.
One of Jesus' apostles.
That was a while ago. All right, the golden age is before us, not behind us. Okay, and I think that's a testament to, again, investing. It's not what's already happened; it's what is going to happen in the future. So let's talk a little bit about when we talk about this idea of a golden age. What does that even mean? Okay, because a golden age could. When I think about a golden age, the first thing in my mind that I go back to was the Roaring '20s. Okay, 100 years ago, effectively at this point, and how much was going on in the '20s, right? You had airplanes taking off, cars starting to drive, this massive exuberance of excitement and opportunity going along, not just in the U.S. but really across the world. And when I think about what's going on today, what's different today is that there's so much more happening. It's not just a technology revolution. We've seen a couple of those over the last 100 years, okay? We saw one, we go back to 2000 with the dot-com revolution, when I know people say, well, the market blew up. Well, it did, but it created the foundation for where we are today. You think about the industrial, you think about the industrial revolution. We haven't seen one of those in a really long time, right? But now we're starting to see green shoots in that, and then also the healthcare. This is one that doesn't get enough attention. All right, when you take these three together and combine them, this is what I'm talking about. We haven't seen something like this before because it hasn't happened, not at the same time. So we're going to talk a little bit about today about some of the opportunities that are happening and where we're starting to think about in our portfolios, how do we actually attach ourselves to some of these themes? Because these are not 12 to 18 month themes. These are 10 to 20, sometimes even 30-year investment opportunities that we want to focus and prepare for today rather than wait for them to happen tomorrow. And I think a big one, let's start with the infrastructure. The big one that I don't think is overly surprising to anybody. Here's a fun statistic for you. Something like 40 to 45% of bridges in our country are not up to code. Now, I'm not trying to scare people on your commute home, this afternoon. Don't get me wrong, but there are some serious aging public infrastructure problems. We all know about them. We all know the roads have potholes, and there's some opportunity there. But I think bigger picture is the private infrastructure opportunity as well. Mm-hmm. That's where I start to get really, really excited to think about private companies coming in and having an economic incentive, not a political one, but an economic incentive to fix some of the infrastructure issues. Yes, there are aging problems. When I say aging, I'm talking about existing infrastructure, but that's just the beginning. We're also talking about infrastructure that needs to be built. It doesn't exist today, and we need to have it and have it fast. If you look at, this is a great chart, the state and local capital spending, or sorry, investment as a share of state and local spending, okay? Basically how much has been put into infrastructure. You have seen massive underfunding, okay? This goes back to this idea of those bridges and those roads and all the potholes, but it's bigger than that. It's ports. It's the last mile of transportation when you're moving goods around. It's the aging infrastructure of our air traffic control system, all right? It's all these different things added up, and over decades and decades of basically just not putting any money into keeping it up, now we got a situation where in many instances, it's better just not to Band-Aid it it's better to just rip it out and start over. So when I talk about infrastructure needs that we have going forward, a large part of what doesn't exist today is truly just replacing existing systems along with building new ones. And all of this, as you'll see in this golden age, it's all going to come together. It's all interconnected, and that's the exciting part about it. Here's a fun fact. You know, there's been this debate for the past, I don't know, at this point, well over a decade of hydrocarbons versus clean energy, and how clean energy is going to save the planet, and how oil is evil, and all these different forces and political battles are happening. And frankly, let's push the politics aside. It's a very simple problem we've got right now. Very simple. We do not have enough power. We don't. 5 years from now, I'll give you an example. Bepin's going to talk about AI later. The data centers that are going to be running AI. Data centers are those big warehouses with all the computers and all the chips to process all these challenges and problems that we're facing. All right. So those data centers are going to need the equivalent of 6 New York cities added to the power grid. 6, just to keep the computers on by 2030. That is 5 years from now. 5 years. Mm-hmm. Our power needs are going to increase by 40% over the coming years. 40. That is a massive number. The debate between hydrocarbons and clean energy is a wasteful and useless debate at this point. You know what the answer is? We need it all, and we need it fast. And this is where I get excited, because no longer is clean energy, or even oil for that matter, none of this stuff, in my opinion, I'm not saying the politics are completely gone, but what I'm saying is advancement based on politics never seems to move at a pace that we need. But when you have economic incentives behind it, when you say we have a real problem that we got to fix, it is amazing how fast the entrepreneurship and innovation that runs our country can solve problems like this.
Yeah, when there's money to be made, problems get solved.
they get solved fast. So I want to invest in this. I want to invest in infrastructure. Another interesting theme that ties all this together is, where is all this going to be built? And if you see, rewind the clock about, well, actually at this point longer than 10 years ago, what we started to see many years ago were companies started to lose that competitive advantage of moving jobs and supply chain management over to China and other parts of Asia, right? The wage gap started to close. It wasn't as cost effective. And all those moves that companies were doing back in the early 90s, it just didn't make much more sense anymore. We started to see jobs coming back to the U.S. very slowly, what we call onshoring, okay? So that onshoring trend started to pick up a little bit. And this is not a function of politics. This is before Trump got in office his first term. Yeah. But what we've seen between now and then, well, we had a COVID lockdown, we had a shutdown of the global economy. Companies freaked out because they couldn't get goods and services shipped over to them in time. All these different crazy exogenous factors have accelerated this onshoring trend. Okay, I want to focus on that specific, because this is not because Donald Trump is in office and saying, if you don't bring it back, we're going to tariff you. These are trends that started years ago, and they are picking up tremendous momentum. The U.S. economy, about 11% of the U.S. economy is related to manufacturing. 11%. If we could get that number to 15%, just 4 points higher, the benefit to the U.S. economy is almost hard to quantify. For everybody, we're talking about jobs, we're talking about salaries, we're talking about the logistics behind moving everything around. And if we do have another exogenous shock, being able to control those black swan events a lot easier than relying on somebody 12 hours behind you in a time zone. All of this stuff starts tying together.
And just really to reiterate the political side there, I think we can all agree that on both sides of the aisle, that infrastructure, technology, we need to invest in these. I mean, the CHIPS Act came under the Biden ad, and the Inflation Reduction Act went substantially towards infrastructure. That came from the Biden administration. It's on both sides of the aisle, and that's why we're so excited about the future. And speaking, as Mike teased a little earlier, the next big pillar of this golden revolution is really going to center around AI and just the speed of advancements in technology. The chart you're looking at here is very busy, so don't focus too much on it. What it's really showing you is the first 3.4 million years of humanity. and different advancements along the way. That star in the center of your screen is the first tool used by our ancestors. The next point on here would be about 2.4 million years later, we figured out how to use fire. The point being here is advancement took a long time. The one thing you can see is all these blue little lines that show innovation. All those blue characters, there's maybe 15 of them on your screen right here. And this is over 3.4 million years. And as you'll notice there, I cut it off at the 1800s. Let's go take a look at what happened between 1800s and now. As you can see, they didn't coil around all these lines. They made them a straight arrow up and to the right. And that's just because look at all these innovations they had to pack in there. We had the discovery of the DNA. We had the telegraph, the automobile, the roaring 20s that Mike was talking about. These are some of the innovations that caused that. And what you'll really see is just like the speed of innovation or like the increase over time. And look where we're at now, where we've got AI out there. And the next step in AI is human level artificial intelligence. Right now, the AI it's very good at answering, I don't know, standardized tests. It's very good at doing things that we specifically train it to do. What it's not good at is being a human, having the ability to continue learning above and beyond, being smarter than us. Right now, the smartest AI, you could argue, is not smarter than the smartest human. Now, it might be faster at calculating certain things, but in terms of deeper thinking and logic and reason, the smartest human will beat the AI. But for how long will that be the case? I mean, I remember when ChatGPT first came out, it was good, but it wasn't great. There was mistakes all the time. You run something through that today, far less mistakes, much more responsive, much better at reasoning. And that's happened in the matter of what, 2 years now? I think when did ChatGPT hit the Apple Store, Mike?
Ooh, yeah,
2022, I believe, was when that got
3 years
released.
ago. Yeah, something like that.
And I remember the first time running, I don't know, having it help me with an email or something like that. Just a litany of grammar errors or making it sound like a robot wrote it. Now, over time, if you tell it stop writing like a robot, it will dumb it down. It's gotten so much better at listening to us, and these advancements just happen every day. I mean, we did a presentation 2 weeks ago about DeepSeek and how much that really innovated the cost of AI. And that's really a big point in AI, is that if these large language models cost 500 billion to develop, how practical is that going to be into getting into technology everywhere? Like, how is that going to end up in your microwave? There's no way that they're going to be able to integrate that. But as the cost of this technology keeps coming down, that's when we could really see it affect every day of our life and every piece of technology that we work with. And it really plays hand in hand with the next pillar, which is this healthcare revolution, primarily focused around biotech and the advancements of curing diseases. And I mean, the four horsemen of medicine: cancer, dementia, heart disease, and obesity. We'll throw that in there. But I mean, think about obesity. Look, Ozempic's out there. People are losing weight like never before. I mean, you have the CEO of Walmart and all these food and I don't even know, Frito-Lays. You have their CEOs very concerned about Ozempic because they're like, people aren't eating as much. So this technology is already impacting our society in positive and negative ways in some instances, but I think we can all agree that people losing weight is far more positive than Frito-Lay's maybe not selling as many chips. But to describe what you're looking at your screen here, if you look at the jumbo messed up shape over to your left there that shows that is actually a protein mapping. And the green is what the actual structure of the protein is, and the blue is what the AI predicted the protein to be. Now, this may not seem like a huge innovation or a huge breakthrough, but before AI was involved in mapping proteins, as of 2021, we only had 20% of proteins mapped. As of 2024, after Google released the AlphaFold, which is an AI-driven mapping service, almost 99% of proteins have been mapped. In 3 years, that innovation's really taken hold. And this is going to lead to a substantial amount of new innovation, because if we don't know what the proteins look like, so think about something that recently this could have impacted: COVID, the protein spikes. This is how they were able to figure out how to combat it, is by using AI and using models to figure out how the protein actually looks like, instead of using MRIs and just millions and millions and millions of dollars of equipment and time. We were able to get a vaccine out in 12 months. That is all on the backs of AI and medical advancements. Over to the right there, you're looking at, again, this looks like a petri dish. Don't worry about figuring out exactly what it is, but what it's basically pointing at is a new discovery of an antibiotic. Scientists at MIT and Harvard trained an AI model on 39,000 different molecular points. And they had to look at basically a bacteria that would arise in a healthcare facility at the hospital, and it would be resistant to the antibiotics that they would give it. Well, by having the AI trained on this data and looking through it, it found a new class of antibiotics, the first discovery in decades. And that's just in the last 3-4 years of this advancement. Imagine where, as it gets better and better, and as it gets better at reasoning, as it gets smarter, where will it lead us to in the future? And that's why we just can't help but be excited about the future and all these different areas, and making sure that our accounts are incorporating positions that really take advantage of some of these. So in particular with AI, for some of you that have aggressive growth, you may see a stock called Vertiv in there. And that's a data cooling, or for all those servers, all the different technological hardware that needs to be run, it needs to be cool. And that stock has done very well due to the explosion in AI. So those are areas that we like to look at to really drive value and to be a part of this 10-year revolution or 10+ year revolution. So we'll keep looking for areas where we can add value and continue riding this wave. Thank you for listening. Let us know if you have any questions. Take care. Thank you.